Hello everyone, Mario Velasco, owner broker for EP Start Realty. Hope you guys are doing well. Today we're gonna cover the 1 to 4 family residential contract for resale. And just to let you know, I'm not gonna go over every paragraph in detail. You guys can review that in your own time, and you have to make sure you are familiar with it before you go and present it to your client. Okay, we're gonna go just over to fill in the blanks on the form. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. On paragraph number 1, this is where you fill in the parties on the transaction. And the first line, you're gonna need the names of the sellers. And the second line, you're gonna need the names of the buyers. Now, our rule of thumb, it's you're gonna get the names directly from a government official ID. In this case, you can use a driver's license or a passport. So you're gonna fill in the names exactly as they appear on those IDs. Okay. On paragraph number 2, we're gonna fill in the information about the property. We're gonna fill in the legal description, and we're gonna fill in the physical address. And one place where you can get this information is at your local county office, or you can go to the Central Appraisal District website, and you can locate the property and you can get the legal description from that site. And so once you get that information, you come back here, and on the first line, you're gonna fill in the lot number. Second line is a block number. The next line, you're gonna fill in the subdivision number. This line down here, you're gonna put in the city. Next, you're gonna do the county. And the last line down here, you're gonna fill in the physical address complete along with the zip code. Okay, moving on. Exclusions. And exclusions, an example would be, let's say your seller has a light fixture that he wants to take once he sells the property. And here in this line is where you're gonna write down what is gonna be excluded once this property closes. Okay, so moving on to paragraph 3. The first line is the cash portion of the sales. The first line is gonna have the down payment, what the buyer is gonna give as down payment. The second line is the amount of money that is gonna be financed. Letter C on this line, it's gonna be the total sales price. Okay. And these boxes, so let's say an example, you're selling a house for $200,000 and you are giving your buyer is giving $20,000 of down payment. This is where you're gonna write down your $20,000. This is where you're gonna write down your $200,000. So everything else, the difference is gonna go to financing. So this is where you would write down $180,000. Now you're gonna select these boxes depending on what type of financing is gonna be used by the buyer. The first option is third-party financing addendum. If you are using a loan that is listed on this addendum, you're gonna select this box. And if you're gonna use loan assumption, you select this box. And if you're gonna use seller financing addendum, you select this box. So that's paragraph number 3. On paragraph number 4, it talks about leases. If there is any lease attached to this property, you're gonna select letter this box in A. If there are fixtures that are under a lease agreement, you will select letter B. Example would be solar panels, propane tanks, and some other fixtures. This letter C, natural resource leases. If there is any, we select this box. Now, typically, a seller is going to provide a copy of any of these leases before you submit an offer. If not, you're going to come down here and select this box and say that you will need a copy of the lease agreement within so many days, and this is where you plug in the days. Okay. Now let me tell you, here at the bottom of every page, you're gonna see these portion where it says initials from buyer and seller. Just so you know, your buyer is gonna have to initial every page at the bottom. And once the seller agrees to this agreement, they're gonna initial on the other side. So you're gonna see these on almost in every page of this offer. Okay, we're gonna go to page number 2, paragraph number 5, earnest money and termination option. Here in the first paragraph, you're gonna write down the title company that you are gonna be using. The following line, you're gonna write down the address of that title company. The next line, it has a dollar symbol. This is where you're gonna put in the earnest money that you're gonna plug in. So this varies depending how aggressive you wanna make your offer. So this is where you're gonna write it down. This second line, it's gonna be your option money. And same thing, this varies depending how aggressive you want to do your offer. Now, number 1, if you want to add additional earnest money after a certain period of time, this is where you write down the amount, and this is where you write down after so many days when you're gonna deposit that additional earnest money. Okay. So moving on to letter B, is gonna ask for how many days we need for option time. Remember, this option time is usually needed so that the buyer can do the inspections, any inspections they want to do on the property. So this is gonna vary depending on that. The buyer is gonna coordinate with the inspectors, see when they're available, how soon they can have a report. So depending on that, how long it's gonna take, we're gonna write down the option time. Okay. Moving on, title policy and survey on paragraph 6. Right here, it has 2 boxes. If it's gonna be paid by the seller or by the buyer, just simply select one of them. Usually it used to be the seller to pay title policy, but nowadays with the current market condition, there's been instances where the buyer is offering to pay the title of the title policy. And so yeah, the line below that, you're gonna write down again, same title company that you had the place to deliver the earnest money. Okay. So we're gonna go down to number 8. Okay, it's gonna talk about if there is any shortages in land or encroachments. Who's gonna pay for that? Who's gonna be responsible? In most cases, you that are filling this offer for the buyer, you will have to select this box and should be at the expense of the seller. Okay. So moving on to letter C on survey. There's 3 boxes. The first one is in case the seller mentioned that they have an existing survey. We're gonna check that box and we're gonna say within so many days, seller has to provide that survey. And if he or she doesn't provide that survey, right down here we have an options to say if he doesn't have it, the seller will provide one or the buyer will provide one. Okay. If there is no existing survey that the seller knows for sure, then we jump to these other to number 2 or number 3. If the buyer will pay for the survey, we select number 2, and we're gonna say how many days. After so many days, they're gonna have one ready. If the seller is gonna pay for it, then we select number 3, and we write down the days, within how many days they're gonna have it ready. Okay. We move on to letter D. On this portion and this line, we're gonna fill in residential use only, because that's what the property is going to be used for. Okay, and here on this line, it's additional days for objections. Let's say you have you get a survey from title, and you finally have the results for the title search from Title 2, and they find something wrong with possibly an encroachment or problems. Okay, so here you're gonna write down how many days after you get notice you have the right to terminate this contract. Okay, so moving on, we're going, okay, on page 4, paragraph 7, property condition. Okay, by law, it is required that the seller provides a disclosure to the buyer, and if the seller, if the listing agent already had one and had it posted on the MLS, and you were able to see it before you're writing this offer, you will select the first box, that the buyer has received a notice. If there wasn't one, you're gonna select number 2, and you're gonna say within so many days they have to provide me a seller's disclosure. Typically what I've seen is within 3 days. I think it is an important document, so it has to be I believe three days is the most common. But again, it's up to you what how many days you wanna write down here. Now number 3, it says seller not required to furnish a notice if the property it's a foreclosure. More likely you're not going to get a seller's disclosure. So once you're writing an offer for a foreclosure, then you will probably be selecting this box. Okay, moving on to letter D, acceptance of the property. There's 2 boxes here. One is saying that the buyer will accept the property as is, and the second one is if you are negotiating any repairs to the property. I usually recommend to select buyer accepts the property as is, but let me tell you, the buyer still has the right to do an inspection on the property, and they're actually not buying the property as is at this point. So they still have an option time to do an inspection, and they still can cancel the contract if they decide to do so. Okay. So I would usually select this one and still do inspection. If we're going to negotiate any repairs, then do it in an addendum at a later time once we are into a contract. Okay. So moving on to letter H, residential service contract. These are the home warranties. If the seller, if the buyer is going to negotiate for the seller to pay a service contract, this is where you're going to write down the amount, the cost of the home warranty. Okay, moving on to paragraph number 8, brokers and sales agents. Broker or sales agents should disclose. In this paragraph, they require you to disclose if the real estate agent is related to the clients. If you are related to your client, you can write it down here. You have to disclose. Okay, moving on to paragraph 9, closing date. This is where you're gonna write down the closing date when you think you'll probably be closing this contract. Now, one way you can get this date, you should be in contact with your loan officer, and once you tell him that you are negotiating on this offer, and he can give you a period of time, and he can come up with that closing date, and so you coordinate with them, and they can give you a better idea when you can be closing this contract. So this is where you're going to write down the date. Okay, moving on to paragraph number 10, buyer's possession. Typically, the buyer can take over the house upon closing and funding, and you will select this box. But in case the property is under lease, let's say the buyer is already leasing the property, or will lease the property, and they're going to move in before the closing, then you select the second box according to the temporary residential lease. Okay, paragraph 11, this is a blank space, and this space is only to enter any factual statements that are not mentioned on this document, or that are not mentioned in any of the addenda. Most of the times, everything is covered by either on this offer, in this document, or any additional addenda, any other documents that could be attached to this offer. Okay, moving on to paragraph 12, settlement and other expenses. If the buyer wants to negotiate seller compensation for closing cost, or seller contribution towards the buyer's closing cost, this is where you're going to negotiate, where you're going to put in the amount that the buyer wants to negotiate. Okay, moving on to page number 8, paragraph 21, notices. On this portion, we're going to fill in information of the buyer, and on the right you're going to put in the information of the seller. And this is so that if title or a loan officer need to contact any of both parties, they can get the information from here. Okay, so moving on to paragraph number 22, agreement of parties. and additional addenda. This is are a list of documents and addenda that you could attach to this offer or contract, depending on the type of property, depending on the type of contract. So if you're going to need any of these addendums, you're going to come in and select the boxes that pertain to this offer. Now, if there is an addendum or any other form that you need to attach and is not listed here, you select this box over here, and then you write down the addenda that you're going to be attaching. Okay, on paragraph number 23, this is where there's, in some cases, the buyers or the sellers want to consult an attorney to review this contract. If they will consult an attorney, this is where you're going to fill in the information. On the left is the buyer's attorney, on the right is the seller's attorney. Okay. Okay, on page 9, this is where the buyers are going to sign the offer. Now, once the seller receives the offer, if they accept the offer, they're going to sign on the right. And let's say they're the last party to sign this agreement. So at that time, we're going to have to execute the contract. So in this box right here is where you're going to put in the date when the last person signed this agreement. And this is going to be the effective date, as mentioned in most of the paragraphs in this agreement, in this offer. Okay. Moving on to page 10, this is broker information. If you are the agent for the buyer, you're going to fill in your information on the left side, and you're going to select your represented buyer as a buyer's agent only. If you are, and then the listing agent is going to fill in the information on the right. Now, if you're a broker working as intermediary, you do not fill the left portion. You will only fill the right portion, but you will select the box where it says seller and buyer as an intermediary. Okay. And you fill in all this information about the brokerage and about the agents in this transaction. Okay, and below this page, this is where you're going to write down the commission percent that the buyer's agent is going to get paid. Typically, you're going to get this, you're going to see it on the MLS, on the listing, how much is the listing is paying, and you get the percentage from there. You're going to write it down here. Okay, the last page, number 11, this, we don't have to fill in anything. These are receipts to be used by title company. Once the title company receives the option fee, they receive the earnest money, a copy of the contract, and additional earnest money if they have to deposit additional earnest money. The title company uses this page as a receipt once they receive all this information and documents. And typically, once they fill it, and they receive everything, they're gonna title company will send a copy to the listing agent and to the buyer's agent for the records. Okay, so this concludes the form, the 1 to 4 residential contract, and I hope this helps you in filling in this form. And if you have any questions, you can call me at 915-329-5829. If you're an agent for another brokerage, you can contact your broker. And thank you for your time, and I will see you on the next video.